Hi everyone, welcome back to another video from Learning to Learn. In this video we're going to be looking at the basics of algebra. Algebra is very like arithmetic. It uses the same four basic operations: addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. But algebra differs from arithmetic in that it introduces an unknown concept or an unknown variable, something that we need to figure out. With arithmetic, the only unknown thing that we have is the answer to the calculation. So if we look at an example of a calculation in arithmetic, we could have something like 2 add 3. The only thing that's unknown is the answer, so 2 add 3 equals blank. All we have to do is complete the maths to figure out what that unknown is. So 2 add 3 is 5. 5 is our unknown value. Algebra is used when we've got an unknown variable in the calculation, or equation as it's called when we're doing algebra. Unknown variables and equations are represented by letters of the alphabet. The most popular one that is used is the letter X. Notice that the X is written slightly different. It's written like a cursive X. The reason that we do this and we don't just do an X with straight lines is so that we don't confuse it with the multiplication symbol. We're now going to revisit the previous example we had of 2 add 3 equals blank. We worked it out to be 5. Remember, that is arithmetic because the only thing that was unknown was the answer to the question. Now we're going to look at that same calculation or equation but use algebra. So instead of saying 2 add 3 equals blank, we're going to say 2 add 3 equals x. Remember, that x could be replaced by any letter of the alphabet. The x acts as a placeholder for the unknown variable that we're trying to figure out. With algebra, your task is always to figure out what the unknown variables are, so the letters. In this one, we've only got one unknown variable to figure out, but soon you'll be doing equations where you've got many unknown variables to work out. Again, this one's quite simple because we know that 2 add 3 equals x, and we know that x represents one number, so therefore x must be 5. An equation is just like a set of scales. The equal sign represents the middle of the scales. What we have on one side needs to be equal or equivalent or the same as the other side to make it true, to make it right. So if we think of it as one side of the scales is the known and one side of the scales is the unknown, we can work out the equation. So on our known side, we've got 2 add 3, and on our unknown side, we have got x. If we were to balance the scales, 2 add 3 equals 5. Therefore, x must be 5. If we were to replace the x with a 5, then it would be balanced. 2 add 3 equals x, 2 add 3 equals 5. Balanced. What we do when we want to check an answer is to replace the letter with the answer that you found. If you can then say the equation or the calculation and it makes sense, it is true, then you've got it correct. So for example, we initially had 2 add 3 equals x. Now that I've worked it out and I've found out that x equals 5, if I do 2 add 3 equals 5, it's still true. It still makes sense, therefore I've gotten it correct. In our next video, we're going to be looking at solving equations using algebra. But for now, we're just going to look at some basic rules that we have to follow. So the first thing that we need to know when doing algebra is that the same letter can be used in different problems to represent different unknown numbers. So for example, we could have an equation that is x equals 5 take away 4. Then we could have another problem that says x equals 10 add 2. You can see that these two equations have got different values for x when you solve them, but that's okay because it's two completely different problems. So that's the first thing that we need to remember. The same letter can represent different values in different problems. While it's okay that the same letter be used in different problems to represent different values, it's not okay to have the same letter in the same problem representing different values. So for example, if I had x add x equals 6. With algebra, my task is to figure out the unknown values. And in this equation, I've got two unknown values, the two x's. Now, thinking of my number bonds to 6, these two x's could be 6 and 0, 5 and 1, 4 and 2, or 3 and 3. Now, because I've got two x's, they're both the same letter, I know that the numbers that they're representing will need to be the same. therefore it has to be 3 and 3. If I wanted it to be 4 and 2, so 4 add 2 equals 6, I would need to represent the 4 and the 2 with different letters. So I could have x plus y equals 6, but when it is x plus x equals 6, when it is the same letter repeated, it must represent the same number. So like we said, algebra is very like arithmetic in that it uses the same 4 basic operations. Those operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication and division. Algebra is slightly different to arithmetic in that when we use division, it's usually written in its fraction form. So this means the same as this. They both mean A divided by B. So these are both the same thing. A divided by B, A divided by B. All of these operations mean exactly the same thing in algebra as they do in arithmetic. So add means add, subtract means subtract, and so on. Although multiplication is special in algebra because it's seen as the default operation. And so sometimes the symbol for multiplication doesn't even appear in the equation. So in algebra, AB means A times B. If you see two unknown variables in an equation written side by side with no operation in between, you know that you need to multiply them. This rule also applies when we've got an unknown value, a letter, and a number. So for example, let's say I had 3x. This is the same thing as 3 times x. Even though multiplication is our default operation in algebra, there are times when we have to use it. So let's say for example, I had two known values of 3 and 5, and I need to multiply them together. Before, where we had 3x, I could put them together and know that 3x is the same as 3 times x. If I do that with the 3 and the 5, it's not going to work. So if I had the 3 and 5 side by side without a multiplication symbol in between, you would think that I was trying to show 35 rather than 3 times 5. So in this case, I do need to put a multiplication sign in between. We can show this in a different way. What we can do is put one of the known values, the 3 or the 5, into brackets. So instead of saying 3, 5, I can do 3, open bracket, 5, close bracket. Then I know that I need to multiply what's on the outside of the bracket with what's on the inside of the bracket. That's everything that you need to know on the rules of algebra. In the next video, we're going to start looking at how to solve simple equations using algebra. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Bye!